Welcome to a special episode of Think Big with Michael Zellner, powered by Platinum Jewelers. This is part two of our podcast series, All Things Policing, Memphis and Beyond. Joining me again today is Mike Williams, former longtime Memphis police officer and former president of the Memphis Police Association. You know, I met Mike when he was running for mayor back in 2015, and I've been very vocal, letting everyone know what a great mayor he would have made for the city of Memphis, because he's very, truly a good man, very genuine man. And when he tells you something, you can believe it. And just everything comes from the heart. So I'm privileged to call him my friend. Mike, thanks for coming back on today.
Thank you.
Joining Mike and I today is Officer Deon Joseph. Deon is a speaker and law enforcement consultant. He has been an officer in LA for over 25 years and spent 23 of those years in the Skid Row community of downtown Los Angeles. He has helped change the way of life along with his fellow officers for people that live on Skid Row by a, quote, grassroots approach as opposed to handcuffs, unquote. We appreciate you joining us today, Deon. Welcome.
So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, before we start talking today, I want to make sure that I mention that any comments and statements made by Mike and Deon today are their own thoughts and their own opinions. They have nothing to do with Memphis or Los Angeles law enforcement at all. They're speaking today on behalf of themselves. So I want to make sure I make that clear before we get started today. Deon, you know, on our first episode, All Things Policing, Memphis and Beyond, we were joined by a friend of yours and fellow officer, Sergeant Tom Datro. We had a really great time talking with Tom, and we discussed a lot of different things, including the horrible incident here in Memphis, in early January, where 5 former police officers ended up taking the life of Tyre Nichols. We all know how brutal the video was, which honestly, I have to admit, I didn't watch it because I did not want to hear that young man cry for his mom and plead for his life. I want to read you something that you posted online after this happened. You said, quote, "I don't care what political figures, biased pundits, or police detractors say. Myself and the vast majority of the 800,000 officers in this nation are not the 5 criminals we watched. I reject that. I'm going to keep building trust. I'm going to keep policing with honor, proud of the skin I'm in and how I serve. For those trying to sell you that they cannot coexist, you are wrong. I joined to be the difference, and I'll keep doing that. Keep your mind and hearts open to the reality that most of us are serving with honor. My prayers are with the Nichols family. What happened to Tyre should not have happened, and the vast majority of us in the law enforcement community understand that and pray healing for you and your grief," unquote. If you would expand on that just a little bit more, and tell us what you were seeing and hearing, out there on television, social media, that made you express those really strong words.
Yeah, we are in one of the most divisive times in American history, and we get it when people, living in their mom's basement, smoking weed, switching from you porn to cop block, when they say crazy things and share crazy things. But it becomes really dangerous when our journalists, not all, I'm not saying all journalists are bad. I don't want to say it. I don't like when say all cops are bad. I'm not saying all journalists are bad. But when journalists, activists, when we have, and what's even worse, our politicians buy into the rhetoric of the folks who are in their mom's basement, smoking weed and switching from you porn, spreading this nonsense about police officers hating people of color, or people of color who are police officers. They have some kind of identity crisis where they forget who they are when bad things happen. So that's kind of what prompted me. The fact that availability bias is real, and people tend to believe what's being shown to them. And if what's being shown to you constantly is the negative exception of law enforcement, over time, you're going to develop what I call vicarious trauma. You may have never had a negative contact with a police officer in your life. And I speak all over the country. And most of the people I talk to, I got some cop gave me a traffic ticket, But when you watch this stuff over and over again, because it's carefully being fed to you in a certain way, you actually start to believe that when you get pulled over by a cop, you're going to die. Or you tell your children that your life is in danger when you even talk to a cop, So these are the things that were happening, and it frustrated me to the point to where I had to talk about it. And I used social media as a platform and a vehicle to do that. And I'm also speaking to people every day to remind them that what you see on TV is not normal. When these things happen, they're not the norm. They're actually anomalies. I mean, think about it. Most departments are armed with body cameras, right? Now, there's cameras all over the city. How come this is not being shown every night? How come every night we're not seeing 2 to 3 to 4 of these a night? Because the reality is the vast majority of police officers aren't doing these things. These are anomalies that can happen. Will it happen again? Absolutely, because police officers are a microcosm of society. And when I say by that is the vast majority of Americans, whether they're black, white, gay, straight, Christian, Jew, Muslim, devil worshiper, I don't care who you are, atheist, the vast majority of Americans from all walks of life are decent human beings. We can agree with that. We also can agree that the negative exception of America, the people who cause all the drama, the killings, the trauma, they're in the low 100,000s, maybe to low millions, and everybody agrees with that. Where does law enforcement select their people from? The American public, and I can guarantee you that the vast majority are good people who wanted to do a good job. And yes, every now and then somebody's going to read their head because of humanity, not because policing.
Absolutely, Mike. What's your thoughts on that?
Wow. Sorry about that.
You're okay.
Well, I definitely agree. I like almost pretty much everything that he said, because that's something that, we are experiencing here in the city of Memphis as well. And even with the Tyre Nichols incident, my thing was, and I've been tracking it, even though I'm not the police, my son's still a police officer and my wife's a police officer. So, and I still have a lot of ties to the Memphis Police Association. You don't have, well, over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, there were no police shootings here in the city of Memphis. None, not one, not one. And I also agree, because I was one of the individuals that actually welcomed the body cameras and told the officers, you have body cameras, so therefore utilize them to your advantage. And as I said in previous interviews, we had more officers cleared because of the body cameras than actually prosecuted because of body cameras. So I'm a proponent of body cameras, but I'm going to tell you also that incidences, this was an anomaly. I think that whatever happened that night went bad quick, and it's going to happen, but the vast majority of police officers, I know definitely here in the city of Memphis, there are products of the city of Memphis, most of them. They're local. They have family members here. They have roots, were educated in this city, love this city. And they try to do and we have a lot of officers that are working in the community, not as police officers, not part of the cops program, but they're out here coaching football teams. They're coaching basketball teams. They're over the Boy Scouts. They have mentorship programs. They're doing things to raise money constantly to give back to the communities from which they came, because they feel as though they owe this city for the opportunities that have been afforded them. And I also think that, and I said it last time, Mike, there are some outside entities at play when it comes to incidences like this, in that they have agendas. They have hidden agendas that they're trying to get things either passed politically, or they're trying to sway the community to feel or to think a certain way. A lot of times when you have individuals out there protesting, a lot of them are former gang members. And yes, they're trying to push their agendas. Then you got people out there walking with Socialist Party signs that are being bussed in, and all of these guys are trying to set the tone for what's happening in this community, when realistic in this community, like I said before, we have a crime problem in this city is what we have. We have individuals that are traumatically stressed out in this community. We have young people that are traumatized in this community because of the violence. Because, I was talking to somebody today, and all of the conversation is around, especially here in the city of Memphis, how citizens are tired. They're tired because they got to think about what's going to happen. They're stressed out because they always have to be on point. You always got to be vigilant. Now you're always, your endorphins are always up. So it's kind of like, it takes a toll on you. So you go into depression because you're tired, But a lot of the citizens in this city are like that. I think the other day they had an incident where Two young men was trying to steal a car. It was downtown, Mike, trying to steal a car, and the individuals that they were trying to steal a car from shot both of them. And then there was a 12-year-old, I think, that was with them as well. And we're finding these people are younger and younger that are out here perpetrating these crimes. So to end this and to say all of whatever, I agree with his assessment, and I also think that it's a whole lot more going on than people realize. You got to be thinking about what's going on in your communities. A lot of people are trying to help, but a lot of people are trying to tear it down. Crime is money. Blight is money, especially when it's in the inner city.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have people, if you don't mind me saying, they're preying on the emotions of communities of color. You know, what they've done is, I always tell people, Black people are some of the most intelligent people on the planet, hands down. But what they've done over the years have created in our hearts for us to be emotional thinkers rather than critical thinkers. You know, so what happens is whenever these incidents happen, like Mike said, these predators, they come in and they have their own agendas, their own motives, and they prey on that emotional state that the community is in, and they exploit that. And next thing you know, we have a greater chasm between law enforcement. And I saw this many times. Where I work, there's been shootings that weren't even controversial, but then you have activists who show up and try to give it legs. You know, I've seen that. Well, they'll show they have their plants literally lying to the media about what happened. They weren't even there to stir up the community. But once again, I'm so thankful that we're in an age of transparency. Literally everything that everybody wanted us to do, the vast majority of law enforcement agencies are doing them. So what's the issue? The issue is they never, ever want to see the police and the community come together. The two people that need each other the most, the police and the community, and advocates and even journalists are driving that apart. Because years ago, it was news to show African Americans in a negative light. Over the last, 10, 15 years, now the sexy story is, fine, if a cop farts in the street, let's show it, right? The news media is having a field day right now when they can pit the Black community and police officers against each other at a time where we actually need each other. So really, there's a high level of cognitive dissonance in our community. It's unfortunate, but I'm praying at some point. I don't want to see the 80s again. I don't want to see the 90s or the early 2000s where bodies were dropping, and most of those were Black bodies. See, what's happening is they always talk about equity. We want everything equal, okay? So in law enforcement, you know, you want me to ignore crime in the Black community so we can make sure that the jail population looks equal, right? But what you're doing with all of these taxes, what you're actually doing is creating another imbalance in the Black community, and that disparity is in crime. But you're completely ignoring the hundreds, if not thousands of Black and brown people who are getting killed in their neighborhoods. People as young as 4 or 5 years old. But you look the other way at that, and if I even mention that, oh, you're just trying to distract from the movement. No, I'm tired too. It's time for us to face the truth and realize that the police, by and large, are not your enemy. But that's not going to change because we have college professors. Here's another issue we're having. Our education system is completely being bombarded with this rhetoric from activists who are infiltrating college campuses. I know a kid who wanted to be a police officer so bad he decided to take a criminal justice in college, right? He gets a criminal justice, and his professor literally talked him out of it by showing him nothing but videos of police officers killing people of color over and over. Some of them were edited videos. So this is the type of stuff that's happening, and why we can't recruit anybody, why we can't hire anybody, and why that chasm is continuing to widen in our communities.
You know, we talked about that political divide. One of the things that we talked about, Mike, on the last podcast that you and I spoke of on and off here is that, you know, Al Sharpton came in here to give the eulogy for Tyre Nichols. You know, and he gets up there in the eulogy and he, you know, made the situation even worse. You know, we're at a time that, you know, we're trying to understand and, you know, trying to figure things out and trying just to deal with the situation, horrible enough as it is. He's, you know, all of a sudden him and then a lot of the national media, and I know, Deon, you talk about it too, the white supremacists, calling the police officers white supremacists at the time. And, And and they're just trying to divide us even more, and that makes it just so much more frustrating, doesn't it? Mike first, and then Deon.
Oh, very much so. That's just like everybody automatically assumed that the individual officers that were involved in the Tyre Nichols case were Caucasians. They were waiting. And then when they showed all 5 African American young males up there, they had to stop, regroup, because they were, poised and set to go in a certain direction. And they saw that it was all African American officers, and it was like, oh wow, ooh, hold on, wait. So then, as opposed to making it a race thing, they definitely start to harp even harder on all police officers, regardless of your race, regardless of and we get Al Sharpton come in. And, first thing I have to tell everybody is Al Sharpton gets a fee for coming in. Al gets about $40,000-$50,000 when he shows up. So he's going to show up. But see, I have an issue, Mike, when we have so many young individuals in this city that are being killed daily. We had 5 shot the other night at Club Live. We had 3 or 4 shot at some apartment complex. We had the 2 young men that were shot down on near downtown. We got bodies popping up all over the place. Memphis is one of the most violent cities in the nation per capita because of our population and the number of homicides that are created here. They talked about it's only March and it was still in February. They've had about 1,400 cars that have been stolen already. We showed a video where a young man was 11 years old, had been arrested 18 times in less than 2 months because they put a moratorium on the juvenile court system because they want to say that there's a disparity in how many African-American males are being locked up as opposed to all of the other races. However, I have to stop and ask the question, who's committing the crimes? Who's doing the shootings? Who's stealing the cars? Who? African-American boys and girls. Okay, so therefore, and the city is comprised of almost 70% African Americans. So you're going to have a large proportion of African Americans that are going to be locked up. But it does not excuse the fact that you got people out here like this young, and that's just one young male who's 11 years old, 18 times. And we're talking robbery with a weapon. Get out in 3 days. Robbery with a weapon. Get out in 3 days. Carjacking. Get out in 2 days. Where does it happen? Okay, but anyway, I'm upset because Al Sharpton does not, number one, truly loan himself to activism in that he does it out of concern as opposed to for a fee, because he only shows up at those incidences like Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Tyre Nichols, and that's because, and unfortunately, another brother, Ben, what's his name? Ben something.
Crump.
Ben Crump. And I ain't mad that a brother getting money, but they're hopping from place to place to place, and Ben's getting rich off of young people that are dying. And I have no problem with those families being represented. However, what about the other individuals that are being killed on a daily basis? See, and my community get upset with me because I said we have to be responsible for what's going on in our communities. So if we have to be responsible for what's going on in our communities, why are you upset when I tell you? And just like Mike, with Tyre Nichols, I'm one of the first ones. They killed that boy. That should have never happened. That should have never happened. I would not want that to happen to my son or my nephew or my uncle or aunt or one of my grandsons. I wouldn't want that to happen. So I call an apple and an orange an orange. But at the same time, I do know within our communities, we also have to be just as responsible and responsive because of all of the other killing that is happening. But I don't see that from Ben Crump. I don't see that from any of the other activists that only come into the city when there's a high profile case that has happened. And yes, those cases deserve attention, but so do the other cases that occur on a daily basis, if you truly mean what you say. So you should be an advocate also to say that we need to stop all of the proliferation and the killing in the inner city or in the Black community. You know, when they talk about, you know, how police officers are doing this, they don't tell you that there are more Caucasians killed on a yearly basis than African Americans, because that's not good. That's not good press, you know.
Yeah.
And they want to make it appear as though, you know, the police are just targeting Black people. But if you notice, a lot of the places that they talk about are metropolitan areas that are heavily concentrated with African Americans. So it's gonna happen. But they ain't tell you about in Black Dog, South Dakota, where the Federalists had a standoff with the police, and the police went in there and killed XYZ, or XYZ policemen were killed. And as you know, Mike, I got upset because we had an officer that was killed right after Tyre Nichols, and it overshadowed, and they did not give as much credence, in my opinion, to the officer, Officer Red, that was killed in this city, just like they did Tyre Nichols. You know what I mean? Right. And it was an individual that killed Officer Nichols, good officer, head of security at his church, teach Sunday school, former Marine, nothing but good, nothing but good, nothing.
I remember when I would go speak on college campuses or get invited to speak, the number one question I would get from a lot of these, and I don't blame the students. Once again, I blame the professors. Why do you guys keep killing Black people? Why are you guys only killing Black people? And then I quoted, you know, the numbers every year. Like if there's 1,000 shootings per year, like the overwhelming majority is are white. But then they go into ratios and per capita arguments. So look, let me stop you right here. When we leave the station and we get a call, we don't know what that person is going to do when we contact them. We're not sitting here before roll call, okay, 2 Black people got killed in Memphis, so let's just make sure we only kill 1 Black person today. It doesn't work like that. We have no idea what we're going to contact or who, but for the raw data, the people we've been contacting the most, who've been the most dangerous, are white males. So I still get pushback. So I came back the second time to the same class and I said, look, I pulled up some videos, 25 videos of white people who were killed by the police, children, teenagers, some who were unarmed, some who I acknowledge were unjustified, and some who were righteous that were controversial on the bubble. And the kids were looking at this with their eyes open, like, what am I? What? I said, yeah. How come you don't know about these? And I said, because their lives aren't politically exploitable. Okay? Mm-hmm. They're not exploitable lives. But 1 Black person gets killed, 1 unarmed Black person gets killed. Forget all the circumstance, forget the context, and you're all ready to call me a slave catcher. This has to stop. So that's why they don't want people like you and me talking anymore, because we actually make sense. There was a time where I was on CNN a few times, but then I had a friend who said on the down low, the reason why you're not on here is because you actually make sense. So unfortunately, I have to go to other networks to speak my mind on these issues. And I'm not left or right. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm right there in the center. I actually can't stand the extremes of either side right now. So I'm just trying to come. But because I have to go on these stations, because these are the only ones that will let me in. Oh, you're just a right winger. Why did you go on that network? Because the other ones won't let me talk. Because I'm not. I actually go against the narrative, and I actually am telling the truth. Another example. I work in Skid Row. Skid Row is a wonderful place. It has a lot of its issues, but the people there, for the vast majority of them, African American, are wonderful people. Okay. Every police officer I work with knows that. I know that. I'm there to protect those people. But there is a negative exception in that African American community that's doing so much damage, I can't turn a blind eye. So I end up, not because I want to, but because that's who lives there, having to arrest somebody who looks like the community. Okay, their skin is not their sin. It's the level of crime. When 30 people get stabbed in 1 week, what am I supposed to do? Be in Chinatown? And let me state this. If this whole spirit of crime left Skid Row, which my prayers answered. Nobody ever gets killed or shot in Skid Row again, and sadly goes into Chinatown, and I have to respond there. Who would I be arresting? Chinese and Hispanics. Not because I hate Chinese and Hispanic people, but because of the level of violence there. So we have to stop playing this game. And I want to talk to a point that you made, Mike, about journalists. When one narrative didn't work, right? They were waiting, just like we can't wait when a bomb goes off. Please let it be a white guy, right? When there's a mass shooting, please let it be a white guy. The journalists did the same thing. They couldn't wait for it to be white officers. Well, it turned out to be black officers. So what they did was they pushed back. They took a step back and they recreated a new narrative. And I started listening to Van Jones and others talking about that these are black people who are racist against their own people. Man, that needs to stop. Like, come on. It's just mind blowing. And what that does is it puts a target on my back and Mike's back and the back of other black police officers who came on the job to be the change, that they wanted to see. But now there's a target on their back because the journalists have now interjected this theory that because you're a cop, that you are now a part of a racist system. Well, let me tell you this one thing, and I'll shut up on that. Those officers aren't going to jail because of a system, of a racist system or a perceived racist system. They're going to jail because they stepped outside of the system, policy, and the law, and killed another human being. That's why they're in jail. So no, it wasn't the system. The system should have protected Tyre Nichols, but these officers stepped outside of the system. And that's the butt-naked truth, as my dad was saying. But once again, that's why they don't want Mike or me talking. That's suppression. We know they're right, but let's not let them get past this certain level of ceiling. And it's really tragic because we really care. I love being a cop, and I'm also a proud African-American man.
Yes.
I don't want to be anything else. I love my people. I got a beautiful black wife, 3 beautiful black sons who I love with all my heart. I've been 10 tones down for my people for 27 years. All I've ever policed was black communities. I don't hate my own people, but I'm also a realist. I don't love them if I look the other way at tragedies happen, because guess who calls me all the time? Not white people. White conservatives aren't calling me about people stabbing people, raping people on Skid Row. They're not calling me. Black people are. And that's the truth.
Deon, you said something that I used a few weeks ago in one of my online posts, because I don't think it could have been said any better. You said, quote, "It's not the color of your skin, nor it's not where you are from that can make you an effective cop. It's what's in your heart. We are entering a dangerous era where one's race becomes a measurement of whether someone is capable of serving. I work with officers from all walks of life. The vast majority are incredibly decent humans," unquote. Do you think there is any chance or opportunity to change or reverse what you called, quote, a dangerous era?
Right now, once again, as long as we have college professors who are allowed, they have tenure, they're not going to stop doing what they're doing at all. I'll give you another example. I had a partner of mine I work with, good guy, took a criminal justice class and wanted to ride along with me. He just wanted to work with me one day. I said, okay, just wanted to challenge me on my thoughts. So as we're driving, he's talking about all these horrors that police have done. Now, this is a police officer, mind you. And he said, I learned this in college, and this is empirical data, and this and that. I said, really, empirical data? I said, well, where did you get this from? My professor had me do a project where I had to do a report on 150 of the most egregious acts of police violence in American history. Oh, really? I said, okay. So if you had to do a project on 150 of the most egregious acts in the medical profession, you probably end up coming away with a negative perception about doctors, right? And he sits back and goes, yeah, you weren't educated, son. You were indoctrinated, okay? You heard about me. You know what I do in these streets. Are you working with a racist? Well, no, sir, no. And I ended up shutting him down. In about an hour, I erased 2 semesters of indoctrination. And once again, it's going to be very difficult. And when our politicians start spouting the same nonsense, we are they are. We are your police officers, okay? I can't remember the last time an officer was honored at City Hall. I can't remember, because don't do that. That's politically incorrect. Officers are the bad guys. I would have taken as many rocks and bottles as they threw at me during the George Floyd riots. If one of our politicians said, hey, that wasn't our cops, and look, I'm just as upset as you are, but if you come down here and hurt one of our police officers, they're going to do work. I would have stood all day and taken as many bottles of piss rocks and bottles and names all day long. Didn't hear that. And that was the most disheartening thing. So I don't see it changing anytime soon. I think it's going to get really bad. It's going to get bad to the level of what I saw in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And that was the time where it was so bad where even an ACLU leader, I believe her name was Condoleezza Rice or something like that, had to make a statement that, look, too many people are dying. We have to let the police do their job. And I don't want it to get to that point. I don't want it to get to that point. Why do we have to wait? Why don't we fix it now and talk about police reforms in an honest way? Why not bring people who work the streets? If you don't want to talk to me because you think I'm too passionate or too smart, whatever you've heard about me, fine. But pull one of these officers off the street and have an honest conversation with them on what they think, because we should be at the table too. A lot of people are talking about us, but hello, we're right here. There was just a Black History thing where we had a few professors and high-profile people come together to talk about police reform. Not one police officer was there. That doesn't make any sense. So that lets me know that we're still going to be on a slippery slope for a while. But I pray it doesn't get bad. But I think it's going to get bad before that happens again. It's going to get really, really bad where more people are going to die. And it's just, It's tragic to me. It's really tragic.
Mike, your thoughts?
Well, and once again, I definitely wholeheartedly, we talked about, Mike, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I think that like the Tyre Nichols incident, and even if we say Breonna Taylor, even if we say Tamir Rice, even if we say George Floyd, those things happened. Nobody has ever said it didn't happen. And you're going to, and as Deon said, you're going to continue to have them to happen, because when you have police officers that are a reflection of society, and when you have individuals that are constantly being bombarded with violent situation, violent images are etched into their minds. They're stressed out. They got to go home and deal with the family. They got to deal with the streets. Then they have to go back and deal with the command staff on the police department, which is a paramilitary organization, which I think some of them suck as well. I can say that now. And that's part of the other part of the issue, because a lot of the police reform discussions that they're having them with the upper command staff on a lot of the departments. A lot of them are political. They're trying to hold on to their jobs. Most of them are appointed. So yes, they're gonna toe the line with the mayor and the political structure that they have. And I'm seeing that right here in the city of Memphis. But at some point, there needs to be somebody even in the upper command staff that say, stop, wait a minute. Wait one daggone minute. Okay, what happened to Mr. Tyre Nichols was an atrocity. But I stand 10 toes down with my guys, because we got guys pulling people off of bridges. We got officers that are feeding people every day. We got officers that are continuously putting themselves in harm's way in these domestic violence incidences that are on the increase. We got officers every day that are being shot at here in the city of Memphis, but yet they come in on time every morning, jump back into that squad car and get back out there, because they know that there are individuals that need assistance. There are individuals that are hurting. There are individuals that are being harmed. There are individuals that are being targeted in this community. So therefore, they put their lives on the line on a daily basis. And the other thing is because crime is getting worse, as you have individuals on city council here in the city of Memphis that are trying to come up with these 20 points that they want to put into place to even handcuff police officers even more. Well, but what they also better understand is, and I can't speak for anywhere else, only here for the city of Memphis, that's going to get a lot of officers to kind of stand back. They're going to allow things to happen, and then they're going to go in. So therefore, when you talk about proactive policing, it ain't going to happen, because they got to preserve themselves and they got to look out for their families. They don't want to be the next headline story. Like I was telling you about this 11-year-old boy that was out here robbed with a weapon, carjacking. What if one of those police officers ran up on that 11-year-old boy, and that 11-year-old boy is armed because he robbing people, and they happened to shoot the 11-year-old boy because he pointed the gun in their direction, or they thought that he was going to do bodily harm to the individual that he was robbing. So the officers do what they're paid to do. They do what they have sworn to do, and that's to protect another individual from bodily harm or themselves. So they have to take deadly force action against this 11-year-old boy because he out here trying to act like a grown man. So now it's all over the news. Police shoot and kill 11-year-old boy. Oh Lord, here come the activists, here come Al Sharpton, here come Ben Crump, here comes everybody, because it starts a feeding frenzy. You know what I mean? And we have to, and I tell, you know me, Mike, I tell the citizens of the city of Memphis all the time, you got to start thinking about the people that you're voting for. Just because they dress nice don't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good steward of your money or your safety. You have to start looking to see what is their track record. What do they stand for? You got to be an educated voter, because we're putting people in places that are not necessarily representing the constituency that has elected them. They have their own agenda and their own best interests at heart. And, it's kind of like, this is the big thing now. We can be an activist and we can bump the police. We don't like the police no more. As a matter of fact, Mike, we talked about it last time. We have a council person who lied on the police, said that the police had stopped him, talked bad to him, treated him in a racist manner. And they showed a video. That's why I love these body cameras. Showed the video, and the officer was like, "Hey, thank you so much." The guy said, "Well, I got a weapon." The officer said, "Please just don't go in the vicinity of the weapon. Don't reach for it." He didn't yell at him. He didn't get crazy. Treated him with so much respect. And then at the end of the video, he let the guy go. But the guy went to the news media and purported that this officer was so mean to me. He was racist. And I just don't understand why he's a police officer. And do you know this individual is now a city council person? Do you know that this same individual is the one who's coming up with all of these 20 points of restrictions and reform for police officers? This same guy,
It's crazy. It's so crazy. It's like, man,
but
if the names that you mentioned, the Al Sharptons, the Crumps, and all these guys, right? Once again, not knocking their hustle, but BLM and all these guys, if they went in the communities and they fought crime as much as they fight police officers, if they went in and talked to the public about unity and stop killing each other, if they put as much effort as they put millions and millions of dollars into those communities, into trying to stop the violence, you wouldn't need the police. Okay?
Exactly.
But here's the thing. They cannot, and I don't even care if I get in trouble for this. A lot of these folks, a lot of these activists can't wait for another young Black man to die. They can't wait. Oh no, the police and community are coming together. Let's drum up a story about a police contact with another Black man. They cannot wait, when instead of waiting for that young Black man to die, go into those communities and work on helping these young Black men and young Black women get on the right track. They have the power, they have the voice, they have the capability. Obviously, they know how to organize and mobilize people. Why can't we mobilize to save Black lives in that manner instead of putting them against the police, which is causing more attention? Because the reason why we're seeing more conflicts and contacts with the police is not because the police have changed. Literally, police departments across this country have evolved. They're more community oriented than they ever been. So why are there more negative contacts? Because you put primers in these people's heads that we're their natural enemy. And I'm telling you, this is real because it happened to me. I was a young Black man growing up in the 80s and 90s. And all I ever heard were police were the devil. They were out to get us. The system is out to get you. Everything's systemically racist. I heard these same arguments. And I walked around hating police officers too. I walked around, I couldn't stand them, and then I ended up out of work. And the only way I discovered the opposite of what they were saying was, while I was out of work and no other job would hire me, the only one that called me was the police department. And I get on the police department and discovered that 99% of everything that was told to me, all the conspiracy theories, were completely false. It was like
Right.
they didn't teach me in the academy to hate Black people, or that Black people were the target, or Black people are all bad people. They didn't teach us that. In fact, they taught the opposite. You know, we
Right.
learned more about human relations and kumbaya and Spanish than how to keep our heads from being blown off our shoulders in the street, which is another problem. but anyway, so and then I get into the field and I work with officers who were white, Black, gay, excuse me, I just got over a cold, Asians, you name it, all walks of life. And these officers are really decent people. Now, have I worked with a couple of knuckleheads? Yeah, you're talking to an officer who reported misconduct on my agency twice, and I didn't lose a drop of sleep doing it because I believe that officers should be held to a higher standard,
Yes.
but not an unobtainable standard. You know, look, I believe that officers should respond with a heart of treating everyone equally. You know, but there's no such thing as equal outcomes. You know why? Because of the personalities of the individuals we contact. Some individuals we contact, they might love the police, and that's a 2-minute traffic stop where you just warn them and they get on about their way. Then you run into somebody who hates the police, and now it's 20 minutes because they won't get out the car, they won't roll out the window. You got to get a supervisor to convince them, or now you got to take them to jail and wrestle them out of the car. Or you might end up with somebody who's struggling with autism. Now, people who are on the spectrum of autism, sometimes when they display their behavior, sometimes it can be confused with drug addiction. Unless you're trained, you might have to take another 15, 20 minutes to try to recognize that. Or you might end up with somebody who is completely stoned out of their mind. You're sitting here trying to help them get into an ambulance, and now they've grabbed your gun. There's no such thing as equal outcomes. And when we preach that, and when we put such an unbearable standard on police officers, you're going to fail. And that's what's happening in Memphis, what you're talking about with those 20 new regulations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're basing it on their own introspections, not
Correct.
fact, their own subjective mindsets, not reality. And that's what's going to get more Black people killed than a contact with a police officer, and how they don't understand it. And what I think, I'm starting to think they do understand it. They just don't care because of who's giving them money, who's funding their campaigns.
Yes.
They kind of have to play this game. They're puppets.
Yes.
And their puppet masters are saying, you got to say this. I don't care what's happened. I don't care if your own child gets killed. You have to say X, Y, and Z. And they're going to continue to do it. And that's a shame. And I'm hoping, my prayer is one day that these communities of color wake up to this reality and stand up against it. You know, I remember there was an incident, I think it was in the Carolinas, where sadly, tragically, a lot of African Americans were killed by a young racist white kid. And I remember reading where when the activists, the agitators started to come in, this community says, we don't want that here. We just want to mourn the loss of the people, and we want to make sure that there's justice here. When I read that, there was a tear in my eye. I want to see that in LA. I want to see that in Memphis. I want to see that on the south side of Chicago. And we need that so badly. We just need our people not to be woke anymore. Woke is not working for us. It's not working for your community. But being awake is. Judge me by my own actions, not the actions of another officer. That's all I ask for.
Yeah, you were talking. I think that happened in a church a few years ago in South Carolina, if I believe correctly.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I remember that situation.
That when a young man went in and they were having a Bible study, and I think they even prayed for the young man, and then he turned around and committed that act.
Murdered them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, Mike, you just mentioned about that Ben, who's on the city council. How after that happened, and he went to the news and he lied, and then it was proven that he lied. How does an individual like that have any kind of credibility, get on the city council, and then take what he says seriously? How, when we know that he lied about the police already, and here he is trying to, put all these restrictions on police officers? How does that happen?
Well, because a lot of times, Mike, the flow of information is so vast, and the internet age with all of these social media sites, with the news media and different things like that, you hit one story, and the next thing you know, you got 1,500 other stories that come along. And a lot of times, the individuals in the community are so consumed with just trying to survive that a lot of times they're not even paying attention to what's going on. Mike, you have a lot of the older people that sit back and watch the news, because this story was actually on the news. It was broadcast several times, and even the director sat down with him because he was like, "You asked me to show this video. You asked me to show this video." And the director at the time, which was Mike Rollins, he sat down with this individual, and they showed the video. And it was like, so what do you want me to do? This guy did everything he was supposed to do. He actually went above because he did not even give you a citation. So what is it you want me to do? So, they elect this guy anyway. And just like Deon said, it's not enough to just be awoke anymore. You got to be awake, and you truly have to be paying attention. And even though I work 7:30 to 4:30 every day, retired police officer, retired Army, what have you, I'm very conscious about what's going on in my community and how it affects me and how it affects my children and my grandchildren. I'm very cognizant of that. But you have a lot of individuals that have, Mike, it's so much going on that so many people are so stressed out because they were just talking today how a lot of people used to be ordering all of this stuff and patronizing all of these stores, but now they can't because they're so concentrated on just trying to pay for their food. Have you bought food lately? Jesus Christ, in the store. So a lot of their paychecks are going to their survival and buying food for their homes. So then you got all of these kids that are running around out here committing all of these atrocities. And a lot of times it's relegated to their grandparents because their parents are out here on drugs, or their parents are busy working, or what have you, or just because of situations and circumstances and life itself. Everybody's just so consumed with everything. And I found, just like Deon said, a lot of the activists, because people pay them to do certain things. Well, it's the same thing with politicians. Those individuals that have certain interests, and I find it a lot within the business community, because like I told you, blight is money. When you denigrate an area, developers come in, buy it up for cheap, redevelop it. Now you got $2, $3, $4, $5,000 a month condos in there, but it went down so bad that you then inserted crime and allowed crime to happen and different things like that. Well, guess what? A business person or business interest will invest in elected officials the same way. And I'm not saying that they have to take bribes, but what I am saying is I may, through some hook or crook, get my PAC to donate to you that I've created. I may get my business partners to donate to you. Hell, if the limit is $1,500 a person, I may give you one in my name, one in my wife's name, one in my son's name, one in my daughter's name, one in my dog's name. So these individuals now, they have $100,000 to run, whereas the individual that is really out there fighting, really honest and true, can't raise a dime, because a lot of times within the African-American community, if you're looking for individuals to give you money, other than your friends and your frat brothers and your this and your that, a lot of times it ain't happening. Sorry. Okay. So now this guy got $100,000. He can do commercials on TV. He can put billboards all over the city. He can do radio spots on Black owned or Black affiliated or Clear Channel or what have you. So his name is everywhere. So all you hear is Mike Williams, Mike Williams, Mike Williams, Mike Williams, Mike Williams, Mike Williams, Mike Williams. So when you go to the polls to vote, it has been inserted in your mind, and you look and it's like, okay, now who's running for city council? Mike Williams. Oh, bam. Let me hit the Mike Williams button. You know what I'm saying? And you don't know jack about Mike Williams. It's just that
thing about him.
Subliminally, it's been put into your mind because these individuals donated all of this money to make him more present in the media and all of that good stuff. So, Mike, we have a serious problem because just like here in the city of Memphis, we have, I believe it's eight African Americans on the council of 12 or 13. So they have the power to move city council. So why do we have all of these issues with blight in our communities, reinvestment in our communities? Because they represent the constituents in those communities, yet there is nothing put back into those communities with the tax dollars and the tax incremental financing or the tax designated zones that they put in place. It's all in the core of the city. It's all because they're trying to revitalize the core of the city where all of the projects were, and they pushed everybody out into the suburbs. You know what I mean? So yes, we got a problem, a serious problem with our elected officials, and seriously that individual, because you know, Mike, that individual ran for governor too. You know that, right?
I didn't know that.
Oh man,
that's a whole other issue.
That's scary. That's scary. Well,
Yeah.
you know, what we live in is what I call a microwave society, and by that I mean we have people who want their information quick. They want it fast. They want it hot. They don't care if it burns the roof of your mouth. Don't matter if it gives you cancer or not. Just give it to me. And that microwave is going to give it to you fast, right? And unfortunately, when you don't slow cook or slow learn something, you're going to miss certain key factors about that individual. You're going to miss seeing things like their track record. And it's not saying that people are stupid. I would never, ever do that because I was those people. I'm working. I got my 9 to 5. I'm going to school. I got a girlfriend, a family to take care of, whatever. I don't have time to really look at the issues. And that's what they're betting on with our community. So really it's on our community to really wake up and say, look, before I pull the trigger on this guy right here, what is he really about? Is he talking the same rhetoric of the last guy that was ahead of me, that was there before him, that got us nowhere? See, they're not doing that. They're doing just what you're saying. Mike Williams, or whatever the person's name is, and it's the name you know. And we keep voting in the same people who have done absolutely nothing for us since the civil rights era. You know, their magic time was in the 60s or 70s. They did some great things, but now it's about staying in power, getting that paycheck. That's all they care about. And whoever's backing them pulls their strings or the direction on where they're going to go. Because how else can they say some of the foolish things that come out of their mouth that literally make no sense? They're literally paid to stay in power and say 2 + 2 is 5, and it still ain't added up. And that's what's happening in many communities. So it's not about people of color being ignorant or stupid. It's just we got a lot going on. We're trying to feed our families, and we don't read the fine print. And I'm guilty of it. So guilty, you know. So I'm not judging anybody. I understand that really it's time for us to wake up and realize that we're being preyed on.
There was a time when being a conscious voter, and especially in the African American community, with almost like a rite of passage. But prior to the information age, we would all sit down and watch TV together. We would all eat dinner together. And our parents, we would have conversations about the social issues that were going on in the world. So we were a little bit more civic minded in all of the issues that were happening. And we talked about the people that were contributing to, we talked about the people that were taking away from. And, you know, I couldn't wait to go to the polls with my mother and my father, because it was like, you know, now I'm a man, you know, and now I have arrived. Now I can go too, because in the past I went to the polls with them, but I would have to stay outside. And it was like, Jesus, man, I can't wait. Because I want to lodge my vote, because it was instilled in us that your vote counts. You know, now I hear your vote don't count. They say, I hear DJs saying this on the radio. I hear, you know, individual community leaders, your vote don't count. What?
Yeah.
That's what they want you to think. Is that your vote don't count. You know, so therefore people, and it's a known fact, I know here in the city of Memphis, when we talk about from 18 to 30, do you know we only have about 3 to 4% of individuals that vote, you know, in an election? And then as you go from 30 to 50, it may go up to 15, 20%. The highest percentages of individuals that vote here in Shelby County, I know, are the 50 and up. But that's that old era.
They really care. They cared about the issues.
Exactly.
Absolutely. You know, I have so much more I want us to talk about, and you know, zero bail policy, no bail, the defund the police movement, what just happened with Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. So I would love for you guys to come back on.
Quiet on this interview there, Michael.
Yeah, but I do have a lot to say, as you always know. I'd love for you guys to come back in a couple of weeks, because I have so many more things I would love for us to discuss that definitely need to be discussed, if that works for you guys.
Absolutely. I would love to.
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming on today. I'd like once again to thank my sponsor for the podcast, Platinum Jewelers here in Memphis, and appreciate everybody tuning in today, and we will see everybody soon. Deon, Mike, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.